At the edge of a quiet village stands a manor that listens more than it speaks. When carefully chosen guests arrive beneath its watchful walls, the silence begins to stir. What awakens is not violence, but memory, waiting patiently for truth to be heard at last in the coming night. Chapter 1. The House That Refused to Speak. The road to Silent Manor narrowed without warning, as though the land itself wished to turn travelers away. Gravel softened beneath the wheels. Trees leaned closer. Their branches did not sway. They waited. Even the sky above seemed subdued, a pale, unmoving grey that pressed gently but firmly against the earth. The manor appeared slowly, not revealed, not introduced. It emerged the way a memory does, when one tries very hard not to think of it. Silent Manor stood at the end of the road with no gate and no welcome. Its stone walls were tall, but not proud. Old, but not decaying. Maintained yet unloved. The windows reflected no light. They absorbed it. From a distance, the house looked empty. From closer, it felt occupied by something that preferred not to be seen. Those who lived in the nearby village never pointed toward it directly. They gestured vaguely. They said the house on the hill, or that place beyond the trees. When pressed, they lowered their voices, though there was no one nearby to hear. They spoke as if sound itself carried risk. It was said the manor had been silent for years, not abandoned, not ruined, simply quiet in a way that discouraged questions. No music ever drifted from its windows, no laughter, no argument, no sign of life beyond the most necessary maintenance. The chimney smoked in winter, lamps glowed faintly at dusk, yet no one ever remembered seeing the same person enter twice. The silence was not emptiness, it was restraint. Inside the manor the air was cool and still. Not cold, not stale, just unmoving. Every sound that entered seemed to pause before continuing, as if unsure whether it was permitted to exist there. Footsteps echoed longer than expected. A door closing sounded like an announcement. Even breathing felt louder than it should. The entrance hall was wide, with a ceiling that rose higher than comfort allowed. Portraits lined the walls. Faces without smiles. Eyes that followed without accusation. The kind of expressions worn by people who knew something others did not. The furniture was arranged carefully. Too carefully. Chairs evenly spaced. Tables aligned with exactness that felt deliberate rather than decorative. Nothing appeared disturbed. Nothing appeared lived in either. A clock stood against the far wall. Its ticking was soft, but persistent. Not reassuring. It did not mark time so much as remind the room that time was still passing despite everything else remaining unchanged. Visitors felt it immediately. The pressure, the sense that something had already happened here and was waiting patiently for recognition. Those who crossed the threshold often found themselves speaking less. Not out of fear, out of instinct. Words seemed unnecessary, inappropriate. Silence felt like the correct response, even if no one had explained why. The caretaker was rarely mentioned. When he appeared, he did so quietly, as though summoned by thought rather than sound. He spoke only when addressed. He answered questions without elaboration. He never volunteered information. His presence explained nothing, yet suggested everything was being observed. He would say the manor required care. That was all. No one stayed longer than required. Deliveries were left at the door. Letters were slid through the slot without knocking. When work needed doing, it was scheduled for midday and finished quickly. No one lingered. The village children avoided the hill entirely, not because they had been warned, because they had learned. They said the birds did not sing there, that dogs refused to bark when passing nearby, that even the wind slowed as it climbed toward the house. And yet the manor was not empty. Lights appeared at night. Curtains shifted slightly as though adjusted by unseen hands. The garden paths were kept clear, fresh gravel replaced old. Leaves were swept away even in autumn. Someone lived there. Or something remained. Years ago an incident occurred. No one described it the same way twice. Some called it an accident, others a tragedy. A few spoke of it only as a misunderstanding. But all agreed on one detail. After that night, Silent Manor changed. It did not close. It did not fall into neglect. It simply withdrew. Sounds stopped carrying from within. Visitors stopped arriving. The house became known not for what happened there, but for what no longer did. And silence settled like a rule. On this particular afternoon, a carriage climbed the hill once more. Its approach disturbed nothing. No birds fled. No doors opened. The manor waited exactly as it always had. Inside the entrance hall, the clock continued to tick. The caretaker stood ready, and the silence held. Because the house remembered something, and it was waiting for the right moment to let the memory speak. Chapter 2. Guests who avoid the truth. The first guest arrived before the light began to fade. Her name was Eleanor Finch, and she stepped from the car with a kind of careful grace that looked like confidence from far away. Up close it was caution. She paused on the drive and looked at the manor as if she expected it to react. It did not. Silent Manor gave nothing back. No welcome. No refusal. Only stillness. Eleanor adjusted her gloves and walked to the door. Her shoes made a small sound on the stone. The sound seemed too sharp for the quiet air. She lifted her hand and hesitated. Then she knocked once. A single controlled knock. As if more would be rude. As if less would be cowardly. The door opened almost immediately. Not with a creak, not with any drama. It opened cleanly. The caretaker stood there. He was tall. He wore dark clothes that seemed chosen to blend into shadows. His face was polite, but unreadable. His eyes did not linger. Yet Eleanor felt examined. "Welcome to Silent Manor," he said. His voice was calm and low. He did not offer his name. He did not ask hers, as if he already knew, as if names were not the point. Eleanor stepped inside. The air changed around her. It was not colder. It was simply quieter. Even her thoughts seemed to slow. She looked at the portraits. She looked at the wide staircase. She looked at the clock that ticked softly, like it was counting something private. The caretaker took her coat without touching her hands. He placed it with care. Then he gestured toward the drawing room. "They are gathering there," he said. "Who are they?" Eleanor asked. The caretaker did not answer directly. "Your fellow guests," he said. Eleanor walked toward the drawing room. Each step felt louder than the one before. The manor made her aware of her own presence in a way she did not like. She entered and found the room already prepared. A fire burned low. Lamps were lit. Chairs were arranged in a polite circle that made the center feel exposed. One person was already there. A gentleman stood by the fireplace. He was older than Eleanor. Not old, but seasoned. His suit was neat. His hair was silver at the temples. His posture was upright yet careful, like a man who had trained himself to appear calm even when he was not. He turned when Eleanor entered. "Miss Finch," he said. Eleanor stopped. "Do I know you?" she asked. "I believe you do," he replied. "Martin Hale," Eleanor remembered. Not warmly. "You work with the council," she said. "I used to," Martin said. "Now I consult. Less public. More discreet." Eleanor let that sit between them. He smiled slightly. A polite smile that carried no comfort. "How curious that we are invited to the same house," Eleanor said. Curious, Martin agreed. Or intentional. Before Eleanor could reply, the sound of a car arrived from outside. It was faint, but it was there. The manor seemed to listen. A moment later, another guest entered. She was young, perhaps in her late 20s. Her coat was practical. Her hair was pulled back with speed, rather than elegance. She carried a folder pressed against her chest, as if it could protect her. Her eyes scanned the room, in quick, sharp movements. "Hello," she said. Her voice was steady, but her breath was slightly fast. Martin stepped forward with a small bow. "Clara Wren," he said. "Journalist." Clara stiffened. "Former journalist," she corrected. "At least that is what people prefer." Eleanor watched her closely. Clara had the look of someone who kept details in her head like a ledger. Not only facts, also reactions. She noticed everything. Clara looked around. "How many are coming?" she asked. Martin shrugged. "Enough to make it uncomfortable," he said. As if summoned by that sentence, a third guest arrived. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. Each arrival pressed the air tighter. Arthur Pembroke came in with a warm voice and a warm smile that did not reach his eyes. He dressed like a man who wanted to be recognized as respectable. He shook hands firmly. He spoke too quickly. He laughed once and stopped as if the sound embarrassed him. Next was Lydia Ashford, a woman who carried herself like someone used to fine rooms and quiet power. Her clothes were expensive but not bright. Her jewelry was minimal. Her gaze was direct but controlled. She greeted no one with warmth, only with accuracy. Finally came Simon Kett. He arrived last, and he knew it. He apologized with charm. His coat was slightly damp, as if he had driven too fast through mist. He carried a small leather bag and kept one hand on it as if it held something valuable. 6 guests in the drawing room. 6 chairs. The 7th chair remained empty. Eleanor looked at it. "Who is missing?" she asked. No one answered. The caretaker entered with a tray of tea. He poured without asking preferences. He placed cups with measured movements. His hands did not shake. His face did not change. "You will dine at 7, he said. "Until then you may settle." "Settle," Arthur repeated with a small laugh. "That is a strange word in a place like this." The caretaker looked at Arthur. "You were invited, Arthur," he said. "That is all." Then he left. Quiet as a shadow. A silence followed, the kind that grows when too many people are thinking the same thought, but refuse to say it. Clara broke it first. "We were all invited," she said. "But no one has said why." Lydia set her cup down. "Perhaps the invitation is the reason," she said. Martin looked at her. "Meaning what?" he asked. "Meaning someone wanted us in one room," Lydia replied. "That alone should worry you." Simon smiled. "Or intrigue us," he said. "Some people enjoy theatrics." Eleanor studied him. "Do you, Simon?" she asked. His smile stayed. His eyes did not. "I enjoy clarity," he said. "Sometimes theatrics reveal it." Arthur leaned forward. "I know what people are thinking," he said. "They are thinking about the story. The village story. The one they whisper when they think no one listens." Clara watched him. "Say it then," she said. Arthur hesitated. His warm face tightened. "The night of the silence," he said. Eleanor felt her stomach settle lower. Martin spoke softly. "Do not call it that," he said. "Why not?" Clara asked. "Because it makes it sound real." Lydia spoke with calm precision. "It was real," she said. "Something happened here. Something that did not end the way people were told." Simon shifted in his chair. "If we are going to speak of the past," he said, "then we must also speak of why each of us is here." Eleanor felt the eyes turn toward her. She kept her expression steady. "I received a letter," she said. "It was polite. It said my presence was requested for a private discussion regarding an old matter. It included a time. It included this address. It included no signature." Arthur nodded. "Same for me," he said. "Except mine said it would be wise not to ignore it." Clara tapped her folder. "Mine included a copy of something I thought was lost," she said. "A photograph." Martin looked sharply at her. "What photograph?" he asked. Clara held his gaze. "Not yet," she said. Lydia spoke. My invitation was different, she said. It was not a request. It was a reminder of what Eleanor asked. Lydia looked at the empty chair. Of what I owe, she said, or what someone believes I owe. Simon finally opened his leather bag and removed a small envelope. He did not show its contents. Mine came with this, he said. A key. Old. Heavy. And very much not mine. Arthur swallowed. A key to what he asked. Simon placed the envelope back in the bag. That is the problem, he said. I do not know yet. The manor around them remained quiet. Yet the silence now felt shaped. Like a presence leaning closer. Then the clock in the hall chimed once. Not the hour. Just a single bell. It was too early for 7. Clara stood. Did you hear that, she asked. Martin rose as well. Yes, he said, and I do not like it. Eleanor listened. There was no second chime. Only the ticking again, calm. Persistent. Like a warning delivered gently. Arthur tried to smile. Perhaps it is only an old clock, Arthur said. Lydia looked at him. Old things do not do things for no reason, she said. Not here. A faint sound then. Not the clock, not the fire. Something else. A soft movement above them. On the ceiling, like a slow step. Everyone froze. Even Arthur stopped smiling. Clara whispered, Someone is upstairs. Martin spoke quietly. No one should be upstairs. The silence that followed was deeper than before. It felt as if the house itself had spoken, by allowing that one small sound. Eleanor realized then what had changed in the room. When they first arrived, they carried their own secrets. Now the manor had added one of its own. And none of them knew if it wanted to be found. No one moved at first. It was not fear that held them, it was calculation. Each guest was measuring the sound. Measuring what it meant. Measuring how it could be used. Then Arthur shifted in his chair. The wooden leg scraped slightly across the floor. The small harsh noise made everyone flinch. It felt too loud, like breaking a rule. Arthur cleared his throat. Perhaps it was the caretaker, Arthur said. Perhaps he went upstairs to prepare something. Martin shook his head. He came from the hall, Martin said. He would have passed the drawing room to reach the stairs. We would have heard him. Simon stood slowly. If we are going to stay calm, he said, we should confirm what we are hearing, not argue about it. Clara was already moving to the door. Her steps were steady. Eleanor watched her and thought how dangerous courage could be in a place like this. Clara opened the door and looked out into the hall. The clock stood there. It ticked. It did nothing else. The staircase rose into shadows. Clara turned back. I see no one, she said. But I want to look. Lydia spoke from her chair. Do not go alone, Lydia said. Clara paused. Then come with me, Clara replied. Lydia did not stand at once. She studied Clara as if weighing her. Then she rose with smooth control. Very well, Lydia said. Martin stepped forward. I will join as well, he said. Eleanor surprised herself by standing too. I will not sit here and listen to footsteps, Eleanor said. Simon nodded. Then we go together, Simon said. Arthur stood last. His face had lost its warmth. Fine, he said, but do not make it dramatic. They stepped into the hall. The manor felt wider here, the ceiling higher, the portraits more watchful. The fire in the drawing room could no longer soften the air. They approached the stairs. Clara took the first step, then stopped. She looked back at the others. Listen, she said. They listened. Nothing. Only the ticking of the clock. Only the hush of the house. Yet Eleanor felt certain the silence now contained a pulse, like something holding its breath. Clara continued. Lydia followed, Martin behind her, Simon behind Martin, Eleanor behind Simon. Arthur last, a single line of guests climbing into darkness. At the upper landing the corridor branched left and right. Doors stood along it. Closed. Quiet. Unwelcoming. Clara looked at Lydia. Which way, Lydia asked. Clara looked at Martin. "You know this house," Clara said. Martin hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. "I have been here," Martin said. "But not in years." Eleanor felt a cold awareness settle in her chest. "You were here that night," Eleanor said. Martin did not deny it. "So were some of you," he said. Arthur spoke too quickly. "I was not," Arthur said. "I do not even know what night you mean." Lydia looked at him. "Do not insult us," Lydia said. "Not now." Arthur flushed. "I meant I was not inside," Arthur said. "I was outside, nearby, but not inside." Clara turned her head slightly. "You were nearby, and yet you received an invitation, Arthur," she asked. "That means your distance did not matter." Arthur opened his mouth, then closed it. Simon moved toward the door nearest the stairs. He crouched slightly and examined the knob. "No dust," he said. "Someone has touched this recently." He tried the handle. It was locked. Clara looked down the corridor. "The sound came from above us," she said. "That means it could be any room." Martin pointed toward the far end. "The east wing," Martin said. "That section was closed after the incident." "Closed by whom?" Eleanor asked. Martin did not answer directly. "By the family," Martin said. "Or by whoever remained." Lydia walked toward that end without hesitation. Her steps were measured, calm. Yet each step felt like a decision. They followed her. The corridor grew colder. The air changed. Not in temperature. In weight. Eleanor felt as if she was walking into a room where someone had been crying long ago and the tears had dried into the walls. At the end of the corridor, a door stood slightly apart from the others. Its wood was darker, its handle older. A thin line of light showed beneath it. That should not have been possible. The lamps were fewer here. The hall was dim. Clara pointed. "Light," she whispered. Arthur swallowed loudly. "There should not be light," Arthur said. Simon moved in front. "Stay behind me," Simon said. He reached for the handle and stopped. "It is warm," he said. "Warm," Eleanor echoed. "Yes," Simon said, as if someone held it moments ago. Lydia did not wait. She placed her hand on the door beside his. Her face remained composed. Her eyes did not. "Open it," Lydia said. Simon turned the handle. The door moved inward with a smooth, silent ease. Inside was a small sitting room. Dust rested on the shelves, and yet the dust was disturbed in one place. A chair had been moved recently. A lamp on the table burned with low flame. The light was soft and steady. No one was inside. Clara stepped in first. She looked at the lamp. She looked at the chair. She looked at the corner of the room where a small table stood with a single object on it. A folded card. Clara moved closer and picked it up. She opened it carefully. She read silently. Then her face changed. "What is it?" Eleanor asked. Clara looked up. "It is for me," she said. Lydia approached. "Read it," Lydia said. Clara inhaled slowly. "It says, 'You came because you cannot let the past sleep.' Clara, read. 'You will learn tonight whether truth can live in silence.'" Martin stared at the lamp. "This is staged," Martin said. Simon moved to the window. The curtains were heavy. He pulled them back slightly. Beyond the glass was the darkening landscape. No movement outside. The hill fell away into trees and mist. Arthur stepped into the room and forced a laugh. "This is some kind of game," Arthur said. "Some rich person nonsense. Some ghost story to frighten us." Eleanor looked at the lamp again. "Who lit this?" she asked. No one answered. Then a soft sound behind them. A gentle click. Everyone turned. The door had closed. Not slammed. Not dramatic. It simply shut, as if a hand had pushed it with care. Clara rushed to it and tried the handle. "Locked," Clara said. "It is locked." Martin moved in and tested it himself. "Yes," Martin said. "Locked from the outside." Arthur turned pale. "Stop it," Arthur said. "Whoever is doing this, stop it now." Lydia remained calm, but her voice sharpened. "Arthur, be quiet," Lydia said. "Panic will not help." Simon looked around the room quickly. He saw a small vent above the fireplace. He saw a narrow panel in the wall. He saw that one painting hung slightly crooked. He pointed to it. "That is new," Simon said. "The rest are perfectly aligned. That one is not." Clara stepped toward the painting. She lifted it gently. Behind it was a safe set into the wall. Old metal. Thick door, a keyhole shaped like a narrow oval. Simon drew the envelope from his bag. He opened it and removed the key. He held it up. The key looked suddenly heavier. Eleanor felt her breath tighten. "That is why you received it," Eleanor said. Simon placed the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. He turned it slowly. The safe opened with a soft metal sigh. Inside was a stack of letters tied with ribbon, and beneath them a small leather-bound book. Clara reached for the letters but stopped. "Whose are these?" she asked. Martin took the book carefully. He opened the first page. His face went still. Lydia leaned closer. "What is it?" Lydia asked. Martin swallowed. "A journal," Martin said. "And it is dated. The week before the night everything changed." Arthur stepped backward until his shoulder touched the wall. "No," Arthur said. "No. This should not exist." Eleanor watched him closely. "You recognize it," Eleanor said. Arthur did not answer. Martin turned a page. His voice became quiet, controlled, almost reluctant. The first line says, "If they come again, I will not let them leave with the lie." Martin read. Clara whispered, "Who wrote it?" Martin looked up. He did not speak the name, but his eyes moved to Lydia for a fraction of a second. Then to Arthur. Then to the closed door. Then back to the journal. Eleanor understood one thing clearly. Whoever invited them wanted them together, wanted them trapped with the past, wanted them to touch proof. And the manor was no longer simply silent. It was guiding them. The lamp flame did not flicker, yet the room seemed to darken slightly. Not because light changed, because certainty arrived. They were not guests in Silent Manor. They were witnesses, and the house had decided it was time to speak without using a voice. Chapter 3. A past buried beneath politeness. The room held them like a closed hand. The lamp burned with patient steadiness. The safe stood open, like a mouth that had finally decided to speak. Nobody moved quickly now. Even Arthur stopped trying to joke. His face had turned into a careful mask that could not hide the fear underneath. Martin held the journal with both hands. Not like a book, like evidence. The pages looked old but not fragile. The ink had faded in places, yet the handwriting remained firm. Whoever wrote it did not write in panic. It was written with intent. That made it worse. Clara reached toward the ribbon-tied letters. She did not touch them yet. She hovered her fingers above them like she could feel the story before she opened it. Lydia stood closest to the safe. Her posture remained composed. Still, Eleanor noticed one detail. Lydia kept her hand lightly pressed against the edge of the safe door. Not for balance, for control, as if she needed to keep something from closing again, or needed to keep herself from stepping back. Simon moved to the wall panel Eleanor had not noticed earlier. He studied it. His eyes traced its edges. He pressed lightly at one corner. It did not move. He stepped back and looked at the painting again, then at the vent above the fireplace. He was searching for logic in a place that enjoyed hiding it. Arthur was breathing too loudly. The sound seemed to fill the room. He tried to slow it. He failed. "We cannot stay here," Arthur said. "Whoever locked this door can unlock it at any moment. They can also do worse." Lydia turned her head slowly. "Worse?" Lydia asked. "Like what, Arthur?" Arthur looked at her. His throat moved. "Like leaving us here all night," he said. "Like making us look foolish. Like making us look guilty." Clara looked up at that word. "Guilty," Clara repeated softly. Martin closed the journal for a moment. He did not answer Arthur. He looked at the closed door. He listened. Nothing. The silence outside was thick. The manor did not rush. It did not threaten loudly, it simply waited. Eleanor stepped closer to Martin. "Read more," Eleanor said. Martin met her eyes. He did not want to, yet he knew they had passed the point where choice mattered. He opened the journal again. He turned a page carefully. The writing continued with a date. Eleanor saw it and felt a cold pinch in her stomach. It was the week before the event the village never spoke of clearly. The week before the manor went quiet. Martin began to read in a steady voice that did not tremble. It was calm in tone, yet the words carried pressure. "It says there has been a meeting again," Martin read. "The same faces, the same polite smiles. They talk about responsibility. They talk about protecting the family name. They talk about the village. They never talk about what they truly want." Arthur flinched like the journal had said his name, without saying it. Clara leaned in. "Keep going," Clara said. Martin continued. "It says they want a signature. They want an agreement. They want silence in exchange for comfort," Martin read. "It says I have refused them before. It says I will refuse them again. It says the manor has ears, and that is why I write here in the East Room." Eleanor looked around the room. The East Room. So this was the place where the writer believed they could speak without being overheard. Yet it had still been hidden, still stored behind a painting. Lydia spoke without looking at anyone. "Who wrote it?" Lydia asked. Martin did not answer. He turned the page. "It says if they come on the night of the winter gathering, I will be ready," Martin read. "It says I will keep the proof close. It says if something happens to me, the truth must not die with politeness." Clara drew in a slow breath. "Proof," Clara said. Simon stepped closer. "What proof?" Simon asked. Martin tapped the stack of letters with one finger. "Perhaps those," Martin said. Clara did not hesitate now. She lifted the ribbon and untied it. Her movements were careful, but not delicate. She had opened enough documents in her life to know how the smallest tear could become an excuse for doubt later. She opened the first letter. Eleanor watched Clara's eyes move as she read. Clara's expression changed in small, precise steps. First concentration, then disbelief, then recognition, then something like anger that was held tightly behind calm control. Clara passed the letter to Martin. Martin read. His jaw tightened. "It is signed," Martin said. "Signed by who?" Eleanor asked. Martin did not say the name immediately. He glanced at Lydia. Lydia did not move. She simply waited. Martin spoke at last. "It is signed by Harold Ashford," Martin said. Lydia's face did not change. Yet Eleanor felt the shift in the room like a gust of cold air. Lydia Ashford was the daughter, or the widow, or the heir. Eleanor did not know which, but she was tied to that name. Clara opened the second letter. "This one is from the council clerk," Clara said. "Dated the same week. It talks about a sealed report." Arthur stepped forward without thinking. His hand reached out as if to grab the letter. He stopped himself halfway. He forced his hand back. Clara looked at him. "You want to read it?" Clara asked. Arthur swallowed. "I do not," Clara said for him. "That is why you reached." Arthur's mouth opened, then closed. He looked away. Simon took the third letter. "This one is from a solicitor," Simon said. "It mentions a transfer of property rights. It mentions a condition. Silence." Eleanor's skin felt tight. The same theme. Silence offered. Silence demanded. Silence bought. Martin turned another page of the journal. "It says there is a room beneath the stairs where old records were stored," Martin read. "It says some of the records disappeared. It says the disappearance happened after the clerk visited." Arthur's eyes flicked to Martin. "Stop," Arthur said. Martin kept reading. "It says the clerk was nervous. It says he spoke quickly. It says he would not look at the portrait above the mantel, because he felt watched." Martin read. Eleanor looked at the portraits in this room. She wondered which one had watched the writer. She wondered which one watched them now. Clara opened another letter. Her voice remained steady. This letter says the winter gathering was planned to celebrate a donation, Clara said. It says the manor would sponsor repairs to the village hall. It says there would be music. There would be speeches. It says people would remember it as a bright night. Arthur laughed once. It was short and broken. Bright, Arthur repeated. It was not bright. Lydia finally spoke in a voice so calm it cut through the room. Arthur, Lydia said. Tell us what happened. Arthur shook his head. I do not know, Arthur said. I only know what they said later. Who is they? Eleanor asked. Arthur's eyes darted. The committee, Arthur said. The family. The people who decide what becomes true. Martin looked at the journal again. There is more, Martin said. Clara moved toward the locked door and pressed her ear against it. She listened. Still nothing. No footsteps. No voices. No caretaker. The house was giving them time. Martin, read again. It says there is a reason the manor became quiet long ago, even before this week. Martin, read. It says the walls carry sound differently. It says you can hear conversations from behind panels. It says you can listen without being seen. Simon's gaze sharpened. Listening room, Simon murmured. Eleanor felt the hairs on her arms rise. So someone could have heard the writer, Eleanor said. Yes, Martin said. And someone could be hearing us now. Arthur's voice came thin. Then stop reading, Arthur said. Stop opening things. Put it back. We can talk later. We can leave. Clara turned. We cannot leave, Clara said. The door is locked, and even if it were not, we would still carry these words with us. Lydia walked to the lamp. She looked at its base. She reached under it and found something, a folded scrap of paper tucked beneath the felt. She unfolded it, a line of handwriting. Fresh, not faded. Lydia read it silently. Then she held it out so the others could see. Eleanor leaned in and read as well. It said, Begin where the story was cleaned. Clara frowned. Cleaned, Clara repeated. Martin's eyes narrowed. The official report, Martin said. The one that was edited, the one that became polite. Simon looked at the safe. So the letters and journal are proof, Simon said. Proof that the past was rewritten. Arthur's voice shook. You are not listening, Arthur said. If you say that out loud, you will destroy lives. Clara faced him. Or repair them, Clara said, depending on whose lives you mean. Arthur stared at the floor. Eleanor understood then. They were not here merely to solve an old riddle. They were here because each of them stood near the lie in a different way. They were here because the lie was beginning to rot. Someone decided it was time to open it. The closed door behind them gave a faint, soft sound. Not a bang, not a threat, just a gentle shift like a latch settling. Everyone froze. Then slowly the handle turned. The door opened. The caretaker stood there. He did not look surprised. He looked prepared. Dinner will be served in 1 hour, he said. Please return to your rooms. You will find them ready. Clara stepped forward. Who locked the door? Clara asked. The caretaker looked at her. The manor decides what closes, he said. And what opens? He stepped aside. They filed out one by one. As Eleanor left the room, she looked back at the lamp. It still burned. Steady. As if it would remain lit until the last truth was removed. And she realized something else. The caretaker had not asked what they found. He already knew. They returned downstairs in silence. The manor seemed wider now that they carried the journal in their minds. The corridors felt less like passageways and more like channels that directed them. Even the portraits felt different. Eleanor could not shake the sense that eyes followed with purpose. The caretaker led them to separate rooms. Each room was prepared. Clean sheets, a small fire set, a jug of water, a single lamp on a side table. It would have felt welcoming if it did not feel rehearsed. Eleanor's room looked out toward the trees. The sky was darker now. The manor grounds were swallowed by mist that rolled in slow, quiet folds. She sat in the chair beside the window and tried to think clearly. Begin where the story was cleaned. She knew what that meant. The official account, the village version. The words that had been agreed upon. Eleanor had worked with records before. She understood how truth could be trimmed, how details could be removed without anyone admitting removal, how a phrase could replace a fact, how a conclusion could be planted so firmly that no one remembered it was not proven. She also knew that people who clean stories usually do it to protect something. Or someone. A knock came at her door. Soft. Controlled. Eleanor opened it. Clara stood there. No folder now, only her steady eyes. "We need to meet," Clara said, "before dinner. Not all of us, just those who will speak honestly." Eleanor studied her. "Who do you trust?" Eleanor asked. Clara paused. "I trust behavior," Clara said. "I trust what people cannot hide. Come." Eleanor followed Clara down the hall. Clara moved without hesitation, like she had already mapped the house in her mind. She led Eleanor to a small sitting room near the stairs. The fire here was low. The room smelled faintly of old wood and something floral that had long since faded. Martin was there. So was Simon. Lydia arrived a moment later. She closed the door behind her with quiet precision. Arthur did not come. Clara sat. Eleanor remained standing for a moment, then took a chair that allowed her to see the door. Martin spoke first. "Arthur is afraid," Martin said. "But fear is not the whole of it." Lydia folded her hands. "Arthur is implicated," Lydia said. "In some way. If not directly, then through loyalty." Simon leaned forward. "We need to decide what to do with what we found," Simon said, "because whoever arranged this evening wants a specific outcome. The house does not open safes for entertainment." Clara nodded. "Agreed," Clara said. "So we go back further. Not just to the week before. We go to the event itself. The winter gathering. We reconstruct it. Not from rumors. From each of us." Martin's eyes narrowed. "You assume we were all there," Martin said. Clara did not blink. "You were," Clara said. "Lydia was. Arthur was nearby. Simon has a key to a safe in a locked room. And I was sent a photograph I thought lost. Someone chose us, because we each hold a piece." Eleanor sat now. She felt the weight of the room settle. "I was not there," Eleanor said. "I was invited because of records. Because I know how reports are written and revised." Clara nodded. "Exactly," Clara said. Lydia spoke calmly. "Then we start with what is on paper," Lydia said. "The cleaned story. The official version." Martin inhaled. "The official version," Martin said. "A man named Thomas Greaves died that night. It was called an accident. A fall near the East Wing stairs. He had been drinking. The floor was said to be wet. There was a commotion. By the time anyone reached him, it was too late." Eleanor felt the name settle in her head. Thomas Greaves. Not a family name. A working name. Someone likely from the village. A clerk. A groundsman. A helper. Clara's voice stayed low. "Who wrote the report?" Clara asked. Martin hesitated. "I helped compile it," Martin said. "The council requested assistance. The family insisted on discretion." Eleanor watched him. "And you agreed," Eleanor said. Martin looked at her with something like shame that he kept under control. "I believed it was necessary," Martin said. "I believed we were preventing panic." Simon's eyes sharpened. "Or preventing scrutiny," Simon said. Martin did not argue. Lydia spoke. "Thomas Greaves was not supposed to die," Lydia said. Clara leaned forward. "You knew him?" Clara asked. Lydia's gaze stayed steady. "He worked here," Lydia said. "He handled accounts. He knew what was paid and what was promised. He knew what was missing. He knew what was hidden under polite language." Eleanor felt a quiet chill. "So he wrote the journal," Eleanor said. Lydia did not answer yes. She did not answer no. Her silence was heavy. Clara pressed. "Did he write it, Lydia?" Lydia's jaw tightened slightly. "Thomas was careful," Lydia said. "He wrote in private. He feared people with smiling faces. He said they were the most dangerous because they could call cruelty responsibility. Martin closed his eyes for a moment. Then the journal line makes sense, Martin said. If they come again, I will not let them leave with the lie. Simon spoke softly. So what was the lie? Simon asked. Clara took a breath. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. She placed it on the table. Eleanor leaned in. The photograph was old, black and white. It showed a group in formal clothing. A gathering. A table set. Decorations that hinted winter celebration. At the edge of the frame, a man stood partly turned away. His face was visible enough to read emotion. He looked frightened. Not drunk, not careless. Frightened. Behind him in the doorway was another figure, only half shown, but the posture looked controlled, intent, like someone stepping forward. Clara tapped the back of the photo. There is writing, Clara said. I did not write it. Eleanor turned it carefully. A short note in the same firm handwriting seen in the journal. If I vanish. Look at the hands. Eleanor swallowed. Look at the hands, Eleanor repeated. They turned the photo back over. Eleanor focused. She looked at the doorway figure. One hand was visible. The fingers were curled slightly. In that hand was something thin, something like a cord, or a wire, something that could pull or catch. Simon stared. That could be used on a stair, Simon said. A trip, a snare, a deliberate fall. Martin's face went pale. No, Martin whispered. No. Clara kept her voice calm. The official story says Thomas fell by accident, Clara said. But this suggests he was chased or trapped. And someone used something in their hand to make sure he did not get up again. Lydia's voice was quiet. The lie was that it was an accident, Lydia said. Eleanor felt her heart beat slow and heavy. Who took this photo? Eleanor asked. Clara's mouth tightened. That is the part that makes me uneasy, Clara said, because the person who took it was close. Close enough to capture that doorway, close enough to know to write that message, and close enough to lose the photo later. Martin sat back as if the chair had become less stable. If this is true, Martin said, then we did not clean a story. We buried a crime. Simon looked at Eleanor. What kind of edits appear in reports like this? Simon asked. Eleanor answered steadily. Language shifts, Eleanor said. Words like accident are inserted. Words like dispute are removed. Timelines become vague. Witness statements are summarized rather than quoted. Details about who arrived first are softened. Anything that suggests intent is replaced by inevitability. Clara nodded. Then we need the original statements, Clara said, not the cleaned version. Lydia spoke. The originals were kept in the manor, Lydia said. Thomas told me he copied them. He said he hid them where the manor keeps what it once remembered. Simon's eyes narrowed. Hidden records, Simon said. Beneath the stairs. The journal mentioned it. Martin stood. We go now, Martin said. Before dinner. Before Arthur warns someone. Before the house changes its mind. Clara rose as well. We go together, Clara said. And we do not tell anyone. Eleanor stood. Lydia stood. Simon stood. They moved quietly through the hall. The manor seemed to accept their movement. Lamps were placed where they needed them. Shadows fell in ways that guided rather than blocked. Eleanor hated how useful the house felt. It made her wonder if they were being helped or herded. At the base of the main staircase, Martin stopped near a paneled section of wall. Here, Martin said. Beneath the stairs. He pressed a spot near the molding. Nothing happened. Simon stepped in and examined the wood. He ran his fingers along the seam. There, Simon said. A slight gap. He pressed. The panel clicked. It shifted inward. A narrow door opened. Behind it, a small space. Shelves. Dust. Old folders. Boxes. A smell of paper and age. Clara lifted her lamp. This is it, Clara said. They stepped inside one by one. Eleanor's lamp lit the shelves. Some folders had labels. Accounts. repairs, donations, committee notes. Then Eleanor saw a sealed envelope tucked behind a ledger. It was marked with a date. The night of the winter gathering. Her breath caught. She pulled it out. The seal was broken already, as if someone had opened it long ago then returned it here. Or as if it had never truly been sealed. Inside were witness statements, handwritten, multiple pages. Clara read the first line. Her eyes widened. "This is not cleaned," Clara said. "This is raw." Martin reached for another page. His hands trembled slightly now. "It says he was arguing," Martin said. "Thomas. He was arguing with a man in the east corridor. It says the man wore gloves." Lydia's face tightened. "Gloves," Lydia repeated. Simon read another. "This one says a woman screamed and was silent," Simon said. "Not comforted." Silenced. "Someone told her to stop because guests were present." Eleanor, read one. "This one says the lamp in the east room was lit after the fall," Eleanor said. "It says someone was already inside that room. Waiting." Clara turned pages quickly but carefully. "And this," Clara said. "This says someone removed something from Thomas's pocket, a small notebook, before anyone else reached him." Martin stared. That notebook could be the journal, Martin said. Or the key. Simon's hand went to his bag. "So the pieces moved," Simon said. "Someone took what Thomas carried. Someone hid what could expose them. Someone cleaned the report. And now, years later, someone is reversing it." Eleanor looked at the doorway behind them. The narrow door stood open. The manor around them was still quiet. But the silence no longer felt empty. It felt like a courtroom that had finally opened its doors. Clara held the statements close to her chest. "We have enough now," Clara said. "Not the whole truth, but enough to break the lie." Lydia's voice was calm. "Then the question becomes," Lydia said, "who wants us to break it here? Tonight?" Martin looked toward the hall. "The manor," Martin said. "Or someone who lives inside it?" Simon lowered his voice. "And whoever it is," Simon said, "they are not finished. Because they invited Arthur too. And Arthur is the one person who will run." Eleanor felt the story tighten like a noose around the evening. Dinner was in less than an hour, and the house had just given them the first unclean page of its memory. Chapter 4. The night the silence broke. Dinner at Silent Manor did not feel like a meal. It felt like a stage. The dining room was long and formal. Candlelight stood in measured rows. The silverware was aligned with exact care. The plates were warm as if someone had placed them there only moments before. Yet no aroma drifted from the kitchen. No clatter of pots. No voices. The manor prepared food the way it prepared everything else. Quietly. Efficiently, without signs of life. Eleanor entered with Clara. They carried the witness statements hidden inside Clara's folder. The folder was now more than paper. It was a blade. Not a weapon of violence. A weapon of truth. Eleanor felt its weight even when she did not touch it. Martin was already there. Simon stood near the sideboard. Lydia sat at the far end of the table. Her posture was calm, but her eyes were sharper than before. Arthur was not in the room yet. The caretaker appeared behind them, as if the shadows had shaped themselves into a man. "Please take your seats," he said. His voice was neutral, not warm, not hostile, simply certain. Eleanor sat. Clara sat. Martin sat. Simon sat. Lydia remained still at her place. They watched the empty chair that had stayed empty earlier in the drawing room. That chair now stood at the table as well, waiting like a question that refused to be ignored. Arthur finally entered. He tried to smile. He failed. He sat quickly. He avoided looking at anyone for too long. The caretaker began to serve. Soup first, then bread, then something warm and simple that smelled faintly of herbs. The food was good, not rich, not extravagant, just carefully made. That was almost worse. It suggested someone wanted them steady, Someone wanted them thinking clearly. No one spoke at first. Only spoons moving. Only the soft sound of porcelain. The manor listened. Clara broke the silence. Her voice stayed calm. "Arthur," she said, "you were near the manor the night Thomas Greaves died." Arthur lifted his eyes slowly. "I told you already," he said. "I was not inside." "Were you invited?" Clara asked. Arthur's jaw tightened. "Everyone important was invited," he said. "It was a winter gathering. There was music. People from the village, too. It was meant to be a celebration." Eleanor watched Arthur's hands. They moved toward his napkin. He folded it, then unfolded it, then folded it again. He did not realize he was doing it. Martin spoke. "Arthur, you were not simply near the manor," Martin said. "You were near the east wing. That is where the fall happened." Arthur's mouth opened. His voice came thin. "I do not know," that he said. Lydia spoke without raising her voice. "You know more than you admit," Lydia said. "You always have." Arthur looked at Lydia. There was resentment in his eyes. Also fear. "Do not speak to me like that," he said. "You do not get to speak to me like that." Lydia's gaze did not move. "I get to speak to you as someone who lived in the same lie," Lydia said. "The difference is that I stopped pretending it was protection." Simon leaned forward. "Arthur, did you see anyone with gloves that night?" Simon asked. Arthur froze. "Why would you ask that?" he said. Eleanor felt the tension tighten in the air. Arthur's reaction was too quick, too sharp. Clara watched him closely. "Because a witness statement mentions gloves," Clara said. "The unclean version. The version the village never saw." Arthur's face lost what little color it had. "You have those papers," he whispered. Martin's voice remained low. "Yes," Martin said. "And they say Thomas argued with a man in the east corridor. They say someone took something from his pocket. They say someone forced silence because guests were present." Arthur stood up abruptly. His chair scraped the floor. The sound felt like a shout. "Stop," Arthur said. "Stop this. Do you understand what you are doing?" The caretaker did not look up. He continued serving as if nothing had happened. Clara stayed seated. She looked up at Arthur. "We understand exactly what we are doing," Clara said. "We are refusing to keep your fear alive." Arthur's breathing grew louder. "You will ruin people," Arthur said. "People with families, people who did not touch him." Lydia spoke, and Thomas had no family that mattered. Lydia asked, "Is that the rule?" Arthur's eyes flashed. "You do not know what you are saying," he said. "You do not know what was at stake." Martin stood slowly. His voice was calm. "Then tell us," Martin said. Arthur's lips shook. He looked from face to face, as if searching for one person who would protect him. No one offered it. Arthur sat again. He pressed his hands flat on the table to steady them. "It was not meant to happen," Arthur said. "That is the truth. It was not meant to happen." Clara's tone stayed even. "So it did happen, because of something deliberate," Clara said. Arthur swallowed. "There were arguments," Arthur said. "There were threats. Thomas had papers. He had a notebook. He said he would show the village. He said he would show the council. He said he would show the newspapers." Clara's eyes narrowed. "The newspapers," Clara repeated. Arthur looked at her. "Yes," he said. "He said he would speak. He said silence was a sin." Eleanor listened carefully. The words were not theatrical. They were private. They felt real. Arthur was not inventing. He was remembering. "Who argued with him?" Eleanor asked. Arthur's eyes moved to Lydia for a moment, then away. "I will not say that name," Arthur said. Lydia's voice stayed calm. "You will say it," Lydia said, "because the truth is already moving. You cannot stop it by refusing to name it." Arthur clenched his jaw. "Harold Ashford," Arthur said. The name landed like a stone. Lydia did not flinch, but Eleanor saw a change in her throat. A small swallow. A restrained reaction. The kind that comes from pain held for years. Clara did not gloat. She only nodded once. "Harold Ashford," Clara said. "Lydia." "Your father." Lydia's voice remained steady. "Yes," she said. Martin looked down. He was alive, then Martin said. And he controlled everything. Arthur's voice rose slightly, not loud, just strained. He was not a monster, Arthur said. He was a man terrified of scandal, terrified of losing the manor, terrified of losing the donations, terrified of being judged. Lydia spoke. And Thomas was a man terrified of being erased, Lydia said. Arthur's shoulders slumped. He looked tired. Thomas said he had evidence, Arthur said. Harold said he would ruin the family. He said he would ruin the village. They argued. I heard it from the corridor. I was carrying wine from the kitchen. I stopped because I heard Thomas shouting. Clara's eyes sharpened. You were inside after all Clara said. Arthur's mouth tightened. Only for a moment, he said. Only at the edge. People came in and out. Staff. Helpers. It was not locked down. Not then. Eleanor asked. What did you see, Arthur? Arthur stared at the table. I saw Harold in the corridor, Arthur said. He wore gloves. He always wore gloves when he was angry. It was his habit, like a shield. Simon spoke softly, and Thomas. Arthur's face tightened. Thomas stepped backward, Arthur said. He kept looking behind him, toward the stair. He said something about the East Room. He said the manor keeps secrets, but it also keeps proof. Eleanor felt a cold squeeze. Then what, Arthur? Arthur swallowed again. Then Harold moved forward, Arthur said. He reached out. Thomas turned. He stumbled. I do not know if he was pushed. I do not know if the floor was slick. I do not know if there was something in his way. I only know that he fell, and he did not get up. Silence settled over them. Even the candles seemed to hold their flames still. Clara spoke gently now. And what did you do, Arthur? Arthur's eyes filled with something like shame that he forced down. I ran to call someone, he said. I called Martin. I called the committee. I did not call the village doctor first. I did not call the constable first. I did not even think. I called the people who could keep it quiet. Martin closed his eyes. His voice was low. And we arrived quickly, Martin said. We arrived like caretakers of reputation. Arthur nodded faintly. They told me to forget, Arthur said. They told me Thomas had been drinking. They told me the floor was wet. They told me to remember it as an accident. Clara's voice stayed calm. And you did, Arthur, she asked. Arthur looked at her. I tried, he said. At that moment the dining room door opened, not with a dramatic swing. It opened slowly. A figure stood in the doorway, not the caretaker, a woman. She was older than Eleanor, perhaps in her 60s. Her hair was pinned neatly. Her clothes were plain but well made. Her face carried the calm of someone who had lived with silence long enough to shape it. Eleanor felt every guest stiffen. Even Lydia. The woman stepped inside. She did not hurry. She moved like she belonged to the manor. Like the manor had been holding its breath for her. The caretaker bowed his head slightly. Madam, he said. The woman's gaze moved over the table. She looked at the faces. She looked at the candles. She looked at the empty chair. Then she spoke in a quiet voice. You have begun to remember, she said. Clara stood. Who are you, Clara asked. The woman's eyes rested on Clara. I am the reason the manor stayed silent, she said. Arthur whispered, no. Lydia spoke softly. Aunt Celeste. The name rang in Eleanor's mind like a bell. A name the village had probably avoided. A name attached to the manor's private history. Celeste Ashford walked to the empty chair at the table. She did not sit yet. Tonight, she said. The silence breaks. Not with shouting, not with cruelty, with truth. And truth requires witnesses. She finally sat in the empty chair. Eleanor felt the room tighten around that simple action. The manor had not invited an invisible ghost. It had invited a living keeper of the past. And dinner had become a hearing. For a moment, no one spoke. The candles burned. the plates cooled. The air felt heavy with careful attention. Celeste Ashford sat with hands folded. Her face was calm, yet her calmness did not soothe. It warned. It was the calm of someone who had waited many years and no longer feared consequences. Clara was the first to speak again. Her voice remained controlled. "You invited us," Clara said. Celeste looked at her. "Yes," she replied. "Why?" Clara asked. Celeste's eyes moved to the caretaker briefly, then back to the table. "Because the truth was sealed by politeness," Celeste said. "Politeness is a strong lock. It keeps people comfortable. It also keeps them blind." Martin spoke quietly. "And the manor helped you," Martin said. Celeste nodded once. "The manor remembers," Celeste said. "People forget. Houses do not. Not this one." Eleanor felt the words settle into the candlelight. "Houses do not. Not this one." She wondered how many nights Celeste had walked these corridors alone. How many times she had passed the east wing door. How many times she had stood in that room with the safe behind the painting and decided to wait longer. Lydia finally spoke. Her voice did not shake. "Aunt Celeste," Lydia said. "Why now?" Celeste's gaze softened slightly toward Lydia. "Because I am tired," Celeste said. "Because I am older. Because if I die with the truth still trapped here, then the lie wins forever. And because something has changed in the village." Eleanor asked. "What changed?" Celeste looked at Eleanor as if she approved of the question. "The village has begun to repeat the story again," Celeste said. "Not as a warning, as a joke, as gossip. They say Thomas drank too much. They laugh at his clumsiness. They use his name as a lesson in manners. That is how lies grow teeth. They become entertainment." Clara's voice was quiet. "So you decided to stop it?" Celeste nodded. "Yes," she said. Arthur stared at Celeste as if she were a judge. "You were here," Arthur said. "That night. You were inside." Celeste looked at him. "I was Arthur," she said. "Then why did you let it happen?" Arthur asked. Celeste's tone remained calm. "You still do not understand," Celeste said. "I did not let it happen. I failed to stop it. That is different. Failure carries its own punishment. It carries it for years." Arthur's mouth tightened. "You could have spoken to the constable," Arthur said. "You could have ruined Harold. You could have ruined everyone." Celeste's eyes sharpened. "Yes," she said. "I could have ruined them. But Thomas was already ruined. He was dead. And the village would have chosen the family over him. They would have chosen comfort over consequence. They would have called me hysterical. They would have called me bitter. They would have called it grief. The lie would have remained. Only I would have been exiled sooner." Eleanor listened. Celeste was not just explaining, she was revealing a deeper truth. The village itself had been part of the lock. Not only Harold, not only Martin, not only Arthur, not even only Lydia. The village had wanted the story cleaned. Martin spoke. "So I was used," Martin said. Celeste's gaze moved to him. "You were not used," Celeste said. "You volunteered. You believed you were saving the village from scandal. You believed you were maintaining order. But order without truth is only decoration." Martin flinched slightly. Not from anger, from recognition. Simon spoke softly. "What do you want from us tonight?" Simon asked. Celeste did not answer immediately. She looked at each of them in turn. It felt like a slow roll call. Then she spoke. "I want the truth spoken aloud," Celeste said. "I want it spoken without rage, without spectacle. I want it spoken clearly enough that no one can pretend they did not hear. I want it recorded. I want it carried beyond these walls." Clara nodded. "That means public," Clara said. Celeste's eyes stayed steady. "Yes," she said. Arthur shook his head. "No," Arthur said. "You will destroy Lydia." Lydia's voice was calm. "You do not protect me by protecting my father," Lydia said. "That kind of protection is another form of control." Arthur looked at her with pain. "You think you are strong enough," Arthur said. Lydia's gaze did not waver. I have been living in a house that refuses to speak, Lydia said. I learned strength from silence. Now I will use it to end it. Eleanor felt the room shift again. Lydia had made a decision. In the presence of Celeste, she was not merely an heir. She was a witness, willing to break the family story. Clara looked at Celeste. How did you lock us in that room? Clara asked. Celeste's mouth moved slightly, almost a smile. Not warm, not cruel, knowing. Some doors in this house are older than keys, Celeste said. The house was built with passages, panels, latches that can be set from hidden points. It was designed for privacy. It can also be designed for truth, when privacy becomes a weapon. Simon exhaled slowly. So the manor is a tool, Simon said. Celeste corrected him. The manor is a witness, Celeste said. I am the tool. You are the voices. Eleanor looked toward the caretaker. And him, Eleanor asked. The caretaker's face remained neutral, yet his eyes flicked toward Celeste, as if awaiting permission to speak. Celeste answered. He keeps the house, Celeste said. He keeps the silence when it is needed. He opens it when I tell him. He has served this family for decades. He is not blind. He is not cruel. He is careful. Arthur whispered. Careful is another word for loyal. Celeste turned to Arthur. Loyalty is only noble when it serves something noble, Celeste said. Yours served fear. Fear is always hungry. It never stops eating. Arthur pressed his lips together. He looked down. The candles reflected in his eyes. He looked like a man hearing his own life described in a sentence he could not deny. Martin spoke again. If Harold is named publicly, Martin said, the village will resist. They will say he is dead. They will say it is old. They will say it does not matter. Celeste nodded. They will say that Celeste said, that is why we must bring proof. The letters, the witness statements, the photograph, the journal, and Lydia's testimony, and your testimony, Martin, and Arthur's. Arthur's head snapped up. My testimony, Arthur said. Yes, Celeste said. You saw enough. You heard enough. You ran to the committee. You were part of the cleaning. That is why you must speak. Not because I want to punish you. Because truth without confession becomes another performance. You will not let your fear write the ending again. Arthur's face crumpled slightly. He forced it back into control. I cannot, Arthur said. People will hate me. Celeste's tone was gentle now. People already hate a version of you, Celeste said. They simply do not say it to your face. When you speak the truth, they will at least hate you for something real. And some will respect you. Not at first. But later. Silence settled. Then from somewhere upstairs a faint sound arrived. A soft step. Slow. One step only. Eleanor felt her skin tighten. Clara's head turned slightly. That sound again, Clara whispered. Celeste did not look surprised. He is listening, Celeste said. Lydia's eyes narrowed, who Lydia asked. Celeste lifted her gaze toward the ceiling. Someone who believes the lie still protects them, Celeste said. Someone who believes the past can be controlled. Martin stood quickly. There is someone else in the manor, Martin said. The caretaker finally spoke. His voice stayed calm. There is always someone else in the manor, he said. Clara felt a chill move through her, meaning what Clara asked. The caretaker looked at Celeste. Celeste nodded slightly. Then the caretaker spoke again. A guest arrived this afternoon, he said. Before you. He did not come through the front. Simon's voice sharpened. Who? The caretaker answered. Inspector Gray, he said. From the county. Eleanor's mind snapped into focus. A police inspector, Eleanor said. Why? Celeste's eyes remained steady. Because truth needs a record, Celeste said. And because someone in the village has already tried to stop this night. Martin's face tightened. Arthur, he said. Arthur shot up. No, Arthur said. I did not, I swear. Celeste watched Arthur calmly. "I did not say it was you," Celeste said. "But someone did. A letter was sent to the county. It warned that I intended to cause trouble. It urged them to come and prevent scandal." Lydia's voice became cold. "Someone tried to protect my father's ghost," Lydia said. Clara looked at Celeste. "So Inspector Gray is here secretly?" Clara asked. Celeste nodded. "He is in the study," Celeste said. "He has the original sealed report, the one the council stored away. He has read it. He knows it was cleaned. He came because he sensed what that means." Simon's voice stayed low. "Then the person upstairs may be someone who came to stop him," Simon said. Celeste did not deny it. Eleanor felt the manner tighten. The night was no longer only about confession. It now contained movement. Hidden movement. Someone upstairs. An inspector hidden in a study. A caretaker who spoke in fragments. A woman who had waited years guiding every step. Clara stood. "We should go to the study," Clara said. "Now. Before the person upstairs decides to act." Celeste rose as well. "Yes," Celeste said. "The silence breaks tonight. But it will not break gently." Arthur's voice shook. "What if someone tries to destroy the papers?" Arthur asked. Celeste looked at him. "Then we do what we should have done years ago," Celeste said. "We speak before they can burn the story again." They left the dining room together. The caretaker led them through a corridor toward the study. The lamps along the wall seemed to glow a little brighter as they passed. Eleanor could hear the soft ticking of distant clocks. She could hear her own breathing. She could hear the quiet of the house, pressing close like a hand at her back. As they reached the study door, Eleanor noticed something on the floor. A single glove, dark leather, soft, expensive. Lydia stopped. Her face tightened. Arthur whispered, "Harold." Celeste's voice was quiet. "No," Celeste said. "Not Harold. Harold is gone." Clara stared at the glove. "Then whose?" Celeste looked toward the staircase. "Someone who learned from Harold," Celeste said. "Someone who believes silence is a family inheritance." The study door was closed. From inside came a faint sound. Not a scream. Not a crash. A soft, heavy thud. Like a chair falling. Or a body leaning against wood. Eleanor's breath stopped. Martin reached for the handle. Clara said, "Open it." Martin turned the handle and pushed. The door swung inward. The lamp inside was lit. The room was in disorder. And Inspector Gray was not standing. He was on the floor beside the desk. Conscious. Breathing. But dazed. One hand pressed to his temple. His eyes tried to focus. Simon rushed in. Inspector Simon said, "Are you hurt?" Gray blinked. His voice was rough, but controlled. "Someone came behind me," he said. Quiet, like the house. I did not see his face. I only felt the blow. Clara looked around quickly. "The report," Clara said. "The sealed report." Gray pointed weakly. "Gone," he said. "And the folder I brought." "Gone." Celeste's face remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "Then the night truly begins," Celeste said, "because someone inside Silent Manor has decided to fight the truth. And they are using silence as their weapon." Morning arrived without ceremony. Pale light spread across the manor stones, and the mist thinned as if the hill itself could finally breathe. In the study, Inspector Gray sealed the notebook, the journal, the letters, the witness statements, and the recovered report. Each item was placed into evidence folders with steady hands, not as trophies, but as promises that the story would not be cleaned again. Clara wrote a brief factual account while the details were still sharp. Martin and Arthur signed their statements in silence, both looking smaller, yet strangely lighter. Lydia stood by the window, watching the village road, no longer afraid of what truth might bring. Celeste walked the corridor once more and paused by the portraits, not to plead for forgiveness, but to accept what had been done in their name. Julian was taken to the county car at first light. He did not resist. He only looked back once at the manor, as if realizing the house had never belonged to him at all. When the doors closed behind the last witness, the clock continued its quiet ticking. Silent Manor remained still, but the stillness had changed. It was no longer a command to forget. It was a space where nothing needed hiding anymore.